welcome everybody. This is Successful People who meet every single week. This week is the 25th of June. And on this day, it's about approximately 3 months ago today where we started this call. And we started in the middle of COVID and we're still kind of dealing with it. But we said you can accomplish anything in 90 days, so why don't we accomplish something in 90 days? Last week we were talking about, hold on just a second, I'm gonna mute everybody. A little bit of noise in the background. Last week we were talking about the Millionaire Matrix. If you joined with us last week, let me show you what the screen share looked like for our conversation last week. We were talking about entrepreneurs. If you're an entrepreneur, then you like to sell stuff. If you're an employee, you like to get a salary. Entrepreneurs make money when they make profits, when they sell widgets, when they sell something that makes a profit. And just a quick summary from last week, we talked about what a millionaire matrix is. Millionaire matrix means that everything you sell can have a certain price and then you can have a certain number of things you sell, whether you're selling one item or 1 million items for $1, you still make $1 million. So this is profit. You sell 100,000 items for $10, you make $1 million. You sell 10,000 items for $100. See, as the price goes up, the number of widgets you have to sell to reach your $1 million goal goes down. And eventually you get to a place where your belief is strong enough where you're willing to take action. So we said, if you sold a $1,000 item, you'd only need to find 1,000 people. And so every one of you voted last week. I'm not going to do that again, but last week you voted. You said, where is your belief? Where do you think is possible for you? Which one of these lines would recommend what you are willing or believe you can do? If you sold a $10,000 item, you'd only need to sell 100 of them this year. And if you sold a $100,000 item, you only need to sell 10. If you sold $1 million item, you only sell one. See how the numbers, scale up and scale down, depending upon the amount of amount of products you sell and the price you sell it at. Many of you said that it would be difficult for you to sell a $10 item, and you have trouble selling. That's one of your challenges in life. You have difficulty selling. You have difficulty persuading people. Well, that's a big challenge if you want to be an entrepreneur. You got to sell. You got to sell something. And either you or you have to hire a salesperson who it's their piece of cake to do that. But it's not your piece of cake. You have to hire somebody to do it. And of course, that's not my piece of cake. For many, 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 many years, I was terrified to sell. And I finally read a lot of books that helped open my mind, and my fear went down, my worry about what people thought of me, etc. You'd be surprised that really successful people all deal with different fears, and that was one of my fears. So today, just reviewing what we talked about last week, now we need to talk about the second part of the puzzle. When I teach people how to make money on the internet, I'm going to tell them that there's just a couple things you need. You need to have a product to sell. And of course, we've been talking here in the Millionaire Matrix, whatever you decide to sell, whatever profit you could generate from selling one of those widgets, you have to have something to sell. And the second thing you need online is a database. Now, I may have told you this story before, but Nikki was one of our students who came to a class we called it was the Cracking the Millionaire Code Challenge. And we invited a couple hundred people to come from all over the United States. Nikki was one of those people. We said, we're going to teach you for 3 days, and then we're all going to go the next 90 days, and we're going to count up the profits that all of this group earned. It was like 168 people, I think it was. And so we're going to monitor your progress for the next 90 days. And how much profit did you earn in the 90 days from the leaving of that class? Nikki was one of those people. She'd already been to some of my real estate classes and had done very well. She'd earned a serious amount of money, but now she wanted to pivot to another stream of income. And over this last 90 days, I've been talking about pivoting. I've been talking about uh, generating a side hustle. As a matter of fact, some of you have 9-10 weeks ago actually joined a side hustle where we're actually writing books together. Some of you launched different kinds of side hustles in the 90 days. I don't know what your side hustle is, but you should have multiple side hustles. So Nikki, her one way of earning money was real estate, and so she was doing well at that. Now she says, I want another side hustle. I want multiple streams of income, and that's what this book is all about: multiple streams of income, how to generate a lifetime of unlimited wealth. And I talk about 10 ways of making extra streams of income. So Nikki had done one of those ways, and now we were shifting to the internet, which is another one of the chapters in this book. And she said, I don't know, I don't have anything, I don't have nothing, I don't even have an idea. And I said, well, you need two things if you want to make money on the internet. It's boil it all the complicated stuff down to two things. You have to have a product to sell, and if you're going to sell a product, better to sell a piece of information, because that information has a much, much lower cost than any other widget you could sell. And we went into some of this conversation last week. Information is the best product to sell because your cost of creation is very low. Your cost of distribution, you can send an ebook instantly anywhere, because the cost of storing, even the cost of everything about information is cheaper than a normal, ordinary, what I call, and I said this last week, a hard, lumpy object. And so I said to Nikki, you need to sell something that's digital, something that's information that somebody really wants. So we challenged her in that seminar, this is a few years ago, and we said, Nick, she says, how do I find an idea? I said, well, what are you passionate about? She says, I'm passionate about orphans. She says, I've always loved orphans, and I want to help orphanages. There's an orphanage in Tijuana, and I lived in San Diego at the time. She says, right across the border, there's an orphanage there, and it has all these children that don't have any parents, and I would like to fund that. I said, what a great goal. So let's add that to the two things you need. You need a product, hopefully information, you need a database, and you need a connection with higher power. Now, you may not have a belief in higher power. I do, and you probably, if you read any of my books, you'll know that that's a very important part of my life. Higher power, does higher power know where the customers are that you're searching for your side hustle right now? Well, some people say, well, no, higher power is totally dispassionate in all of this. He just lets the world run and just see what happens, right? And some people believe that there is a definite connection with higher power. My way of describing higher power is a very generic word because it covers every belief system. But as a Christian, Heavenly Father is the way I relate to my higher power. Does my Heavenly Father know my name? Does he know what I'm doing? Does he know my family? Does he know my problems? Does he know my opportunities? Does he know my advantages? I mean, today, I can't even tell you what happened today, but today was a very, very multi-million-dollar day for me. Very exciting. And did Heavenly Father know that was going to happen? Because yesterday, I didn't know that was going to happen. Does higher power know which stocks are going to go up Monday? Well, tomorrow's Friday. Tomorrow. Now, some people would say, no. Well, let's find out. Let's find out here. We might have done this test with you before. Some of you joined with us, you're brand new. So I'm gonna open up, and all I want you to say is, does higher power know which stocks are gonna go up and which stocks are gonna go down tomorrow? Or does higher power not know? Or maybe there isn't a higher power, whatever your belief system is. So if there isn't a higher power, then you'd say no to that. If higher power doesn't know which stocks are going to go up tomorrow, this is in the future, none of us knows, does higher power know which of those stocks are going to go up and down tomorrow? So if you think, if your belief system is a yes, I believe that the omnipotent and omniscient, that means all powerful and all knowing, that it actually goes to the future, then you'd say, yes, higher power knows that. And if you would say, no, higher power doesn't know that, then you'll type, no, I want everybody to vote here today. Vote yes or no. And you don't have to explain it. I'm just trying to get at a number here of what percentage of you actually believe in a higher power that knows the future or doesn't know the future. Okay, so everybody now is going to be putting in the chat. Okay, I got yes, I got yes, I got yes. There's going to be some no's here, so don't be embarrassed. Whatever your vote is, it's just your vote. Okay, Corey says certainly. Okay, I want everybody. If you're on your phone, try to. Okay, good. All right, good. Thank you. Yes, just tell me, what's your answer? Yes or no? Yes or no? Still got a few of you ready to vote. Most of you have. Keep coming. Just vote. It's just your belief system, and I'm not going to question your belief system. Everyone has a different belief system. We all have different beliefs in a higher power, frankly. We all have all kinds of ways to figure it out. And the bottom line is one day we'll know for certain how that was. But right now we're kind of in a, okay, good, thank you, good. All right, good. JB, thank you. Well, Andy, that's not subconscious. I think that's a different thing. Subconscious is part of you. That's part of your database. That's who you are. Your subconscious is extremely powerful. One day we'll really know how powerful your brain and your subconscious was. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you might personally have an intuition about whether higher power knows the future, but do you think the higher power knows? Okay, Nikki says he knows everything, but are we willing to listen? That's a good question. Okay, good. All right, thank you. Good in. Anybody else? Final vote. So everybody can see the chat. You can scan up and down like I can do right now, and I see a few no's and mostly yeses. I would say it's probably 90-10. Now, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'll share with you what I believe, and you can take it or leave it. But it looks like in 90% of the cases here today, you would have a belief that higher power knows which stocks are going to go up and which stocks are going to go down tomorrow. Then does that relate to you? Does that you're a stock, really? Just like your life is a stock. It's just an up and down, right? If your life was a stock, what would you look like? All right, so there's your life. There's your birthday. There's the day you graduate to the next world. And imagine if some of you believe in a higher power, you probably believe that there's another world coming too. So that's a snapshot of your life. And if you were to draw the graph of your life, I call it your autograph, what would it look like? And so it's just like a stock. You look at the stock today, you see the stock goes up, stock goes down. Kids on the news about COVID, like yesterday, or was the day before yesterday, went down 700 points. Now it's went up 300 points today. It's all over the map. It's very, very fluid, right? What is your life? Your life is a stock. You have value. Do you value yourself? Other people will value you, and they'll value you based upon what you value yourself. If you think you're worthless, guess what? Most other people are going to pick up on that. I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, my dad told me I was worthless. I was worthless. He said that so many times I kind of began to believe it. And so guess what that did to his future or her future? Whatever you believe you're worth, then people will pay you what you're worth. And if you believe you're worthless, well, that's not good. If you believe you have a pretty good, I'm worth $100 an hour, I'm worth $200 an hour, What are you worth? You know, when people hire me, they pay me $5,000 per hour for my time. Now, this hour I give you every week is just my gift to you, but somebody calls me and wants to coach with me, it's much more expensive. How much would they pay you? What are you worth? Do you know something that's worth somebody else consulting with you? Have you learned enough in one area of your life that you have value like that? So your life, your stock, it goes up and down in value from time to time, but hopefully you're going in this direction. You know, hope your stock is increasing. Does higher power know what you're worth? Now, your parents might have a different opinion, and you might have a different opinion of yourself, but what does higher power think of you? What are you worth to higher power? Well, I won't go too much deeper on this. This can get pretty deep, and we start diverging in our belief systems. But in my opinion, you're priceless. You know, you are, in the way I've been taught, you are a child of God, which means you got higher power DNA in you, and ultimately you'll know that. And life is a kind of a way for us to figure that out, right? So your value goes up and down on a daily basis. Sometimes you have a bad day, and you blow something, and you maybe lose an investment, or a project goes south. So we all have our ups and downs, but ultimately you are extremely valuable. You know, we have our belief systems that sometimes there's a critical voice in there that beats us up and says that we're worthless. And that critical voice, that's not you. It's a liar. It's going to tell lies about you. And I certainly hope you don't believe them, because there's a part of you that knows you're priceless. And I call that your true voice. If you ever hear that true voice from time to time, you know that you are priceless. You are loved, infinitely loved. This may be deeper than the outer shell of your brain. It might go deeper than that. It goes into your spirit. I personally believe that we all have a spirit. And a spirit that started before we got here. And we come to this life to learn an awful lot. What does this have to do with the Millionaire Matrix? Well, what I'm trying to get you to understand is that the things you know already are worth a fortune. And so you should be marketing that as information you can share with the rest of the world. And that is an information product that you can sell. Now, back to my story with Nikki. Nikki came to our seminar, graduated this class of 169 people. In the 90 days that we tracked these 168 people, combined, adding all the profits that they earned $10.5 million combined. Now, some of them did zero, some of them did nothing, but some of them, one of them made $1 million in 90 days, and a lot of them made small amounts here, 10,000 here, 10,000 there. The average, well, I don't know, 168 divided into 10 million, I don't know what that is, but Nikki's contribution was $137,000 in cash. Now, how did she do that? Now that's where I'm getting into the millionaire matrix here, $1 million matrix. So I'm going to show that again. This is what Nikki did. I'm showing you the product matrix. Okay, so she sold a $100 item, and she sold that $100 item to 1,370 people. 1,370 people sent Nikki $100 in cash. Well, credit cards and all that other stuff, but she ended up with a cash amount. She did it in 45 days. Now remember, there are two things that you need. You need a product to sell, and you need a database. Okay, so finishing up this story using the matrix here. She says, how am I going to find a product to sell? I don't have a book. I don't have anything that I could sell. Maybe I could write a story about my real estate success experience. Maybe I could sell a book about that, but I don't have time to write a book. Well, then obviously if she doesn't have a product, she has to find one. So Jay Abraham was at this seminar we were teaching, and Jay was speaking, and he shared an idea. Jay Abraham is one of the smartest marketing minds in the world. I've personally given Jay, helping us market in our seminars over the years, I've probably given him several $100,000. So I like Jay an awful lot. He's brilliant. He's fabulous. He still does things like this. He's the marketing guru of gurus, frankly. And so he came. I knew him, and he was happy to come and speak at our event. Didn't pay him a speaking fee. He just came as he gave, and he gave an idea at that event. And Nikki was listening. And he said, what if you want to find a great product to sell, then you ought to go to the bottom of Google. The bottom of Google? What does that mean? What is that? Well, you know what the top of Google, everybody wants to be at the top of Google. It means you search for something you're interested in, and it shows you a list of 10,000, 100,000 things in 4.9 seconds, or actually 0.49 seconds. Well, that's page number one. That's where everybody likes to be. Page number two, sometimes you'll click 2 pages, won't you? Sometimes you go 3 pages deep. Sometimes you go 4 pages deep. Do you ever go 10 pages deep in Google? Do you ever go 20 pages deep? Do you ever go 500 pages deep? Click 500 times. What are you going to find when you get to, quote unquote, not the very bottom of Google? That would require you to click it maybe 100,000 times. But if you go 500 pages deep, what do you find on Google? You find products that are being offered to the world that nobody can find, because nobody goes 500 pages deep. And so he said to Nikki, Google something that you're interested in, a subject matter that you're kind of interested in, meaning that would be something you would be passionate about selling, that you would feel congruent, that you know it's valuable and you know people need it, and therefore you Google the thing you think you could sell, that resonates with you, and keep going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into Google. So she did. She went hundreds of pages deep. And guess what you find at hundreds of pages deep in Google? You find people who can't sell stuff because nobody can find them. And you find people who don't understand the game, the internet game. And she says, now when you get that deep, you find a product that's an information product that somebody is trying to sell, but nobody can find them, right? And then you go into that website and you search out the owner of that website and communicate directly with that owner. And sometimes it's hard and sometimes impossible to find a way to communicate directly with the owner, but you have to do some research, and she did, and she found, 10 or 15 different possibilities when she communicated directly. She got a lot of angry people who were saying, why are you communicating with me? They were not upset. That she was shocked by that people would be upset that she was trying to reach to them and say to them, I want to have a non-exclusive right to market your product. That means you can still sell it or not sell it, like you're not selling it at 500 pages deep. I just want to have the non-exclusive right to market your product, and I'll pay you for the right to have the non-exclusive right. And when I sell it, I'm going to keep all the money. Now that's pretty bold conversation. In other words, it's not an affiliate program, where usually with an affiliate program, you are selling somebody else's information, but they keep 50% of it. Sometimes less, sometimes more, but they usually want, if you're selling my product, I want to make profit from it. She offered them and got a lot of rejections on it, by the way. I'm not saying this was easy to do, but she finally found somebody who had a DVD that was just filled with content for this specific audience, for her, and we call that an avatar in the today's languaging and on the internet. An avatar is a perfect customer. So I would say perfect customer. And the perfect customer really would like the content on this DVD that just stacked full of all kinds of research. And, you know, in other words, the content on that one disc was extraordinarily focused and organized for this perfect avatar. And the price was $1,000. That was the price for this one little disc. And for the people, obviously they've been having trouble selling it at that price point, but they felt it was worth $1,000. And so Nikki said to them, I'll give you $1,000 for the non-exclusive right to sell your information with my name on it. I'm going to rebrand it to my name. Well, there was some negotiation went by. Finally, they said, well, if it doesn't hinder our right to sell the product to whomever we want to, then you will give us $1,000 up front right now. We'll send you this disc with all this powerful, organized content on it, and we'll let you sell it for whatever price you want to sell it for. So it cost her $1,000, yep. But she didn't have to write a book. Somebody had already done the organization. It wasn't a book, it was a DVD. And she now had, you know, thousands of hours of research that had been organized in this one particular thing. Now remember, there were three things I said are important. Number one, you need a database. Number two, you need a product. Number three, you need a connection to higher power. So she says to us, she says, you know what? The first time I try to market online, whatever profit I earn, I'm going to give it all away. I'm going to give it to that orphanage in Mexico. That's what I'm going to do. So if I make $10, if I make $100, if I make $1,000, I'm going to give 100% of it away. Of course, I'll have costs. I'll have some mailing costs, and I'll have some reproduction costs, but it's not that much money. And it's my contribution towards the orphanage anyway. So she now has a product. She has a price. She's ready to market it. She's connecting with higher power by saying, I'm going to give 100% of the money to this orphanage. Did higher power know that Nikki would be the person that would help fund this orphanage in Mexico? And I submit to you, absolutely. This orphanage needed help. And Nikki was just passionate about that. And so she was willing to give 100% of the profit away the first time. And so she just found herself kind of stumbling into the pieces of this puzzle kind of came together. It only took 45 days. She found the product. She bought the rights. So now she owned it. Whatever she could sell that for, it was her profit. Now she needed the third piece in the puzzle. She needed a database. Now, databases. What is a database? You know, let's go to the second part of our millionaire matrix. Remember, Nikki found several hundred people who wrote her $100 check. Now, she didn't make $1 million. She made $137,000 in cash. She didn't sell a $1,000 product. She could have, but if she'd sold a $1,000 product, she could have sold less. She could have sold only 137 people who bought paid $1,000. And rather than finding 1,370 people, she could have sold less. Or she could have charged $10,000 and reached 13 people would have generated the same amount of money to her. And as the millionaire matrix goes, this is the product side of the millionaire matrix. Now, this is the database side of the millionaire matrix. Okay. First of all, you could have 1 million databases with one name. And what is that? That's just every person on the internet has at least one name on their database, because usually they'll have a contact for how you contact the person who owns that web. And so when you gather that one name, you now have the owner of a website. You have probably someone who is a little more successful, who has a little more thinking, because when you go on the internet, it's a little trickier game to play. So if you wanted to, you could go through and find 1 million different websites, and you could gather a name at a time, and it would take you every day, you'd only be able to gather 100 or 200 names. But eventually, because this is public, you go to a website, you're going to find their email address. How long would it take you to gather 1 million names like that? Well, it would take you years. So which is easier, to have one name on your database or find 1 million databases? That's individual databases. So obviously it would be very hard to gather 1 million names, one name at a time. So probably that's not going to work. What if you found somebody who had a database of 10 names? How many databases would you need to find? Well, I'd need to have 100,000 databases. That's 100,000 people in order for me to have 1 million customers. Now, I'm going to ask you, because this is the lesson for today, I'm going to ask you to tell me how many names are on your database right now. Okay, how many names are on your database? Now, how would you know how many names you have? Well, if you're in business, you probably have a customer list. You probably have the contact information there. If you're an employee, well, then you probably have all your friends and neighbors and anybody that's on your cell phone, and usually the people who email you back and forth. You have your contacts through your social media, Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of thing. You have accesses to names, don't you? So I'm talking about, the database I'm talking about is the best database you can have. That means when you know one-to-one that you can email that one person and that they use their email. In other words, they haven't forgotten it and given it up and not used it, but they are still using it. That's the gold standard. Now, a lesser list would be your social media list. If you say you have 700 followers on Facebook, or Instagram, or Twitter, or whatever database you want, whatever social media you want to use, you'll know those are a lot less valuable. There really aren't. If you have, like say 1,000 names on your Facebook, followers, they're not going to follow you very often. Very rarely will they ever see whatever you market, unless you pay. You pay to boost it to your list, and then that costs you money. So I'm talking about a free list where you could send an email to a list that you have gathered, and those people would have the opportunity to directly respond to you. That's what I mean by a database. How many do you have? Okay. So I want to basically say, if you don't have a database, then you don't have a way to make money 365 days a year. You need a database. Now, if you don't have one, that means you just have friends and family that you could connect with. Do you have a place where you could put that database so you could send an email to your database, one email to everyone at the same time? Now, on my computer, on a free program, I've listed all my contacts, and my contacts I have about 900 names on my cell phone. I know these are 900 people I know, and they know me. So these 900 people, I have a database of them, and many of them have databases of hundreds of thousands. Some of the people on my database and my friends, my contact list, I've created a database of the people I know. And if I want to communicate to them, I just send one email, and all 900 of them get it. Some of them might not be looking. Some might never look. A few of them are going to respond and say, "Hi, Bob. How are you doing?" And then I have a business database that has taken me years to build. And, if I send an email to my database, tens of thousands of people are going to get a message from me. Guess what you are? You are on my business database And that's how I get to inform you of when things are happening. Many people don't open up those emails. Many go, oh, that's Robert. He's probably doing another class. No, delete, 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 delete. Some of you, you're here and you find this valuable, and I hope you do. I communicated to you that way. How much did it cost me? Well, I have to manage that database. So I have a program that I buy. It's called, I'll think of it. Why did my mind escape it? The earlier ones I used to use was MailChimp. And MailChimp will let you put about 500 names onto the database of MailChimp.com for free. Now, if you start getting a larger database, you have to start finding a place where you can send your messages, and they'll charge you money to host your names, to have all the names in one place, and they'll give you the opportunity through their emailing system for you to send a mailing to your database, which I did to you. And that's why you're here. So what I'm trying to teach you is, just like I'm talking to you, you have to have a database too. It took me years to build mine, but you have to start. First, you'll start with your warm list, or your hot list, I call it. Hot lists are people who know you and you know them. Friends, relatives, co-workers, people who know you. If they got an email from you, they know it would come for you. You're not a stranger to them. And put that into a database. I'd say go to MailChimp.com. Yeah, sign up, free for 500 names. And so you get an opportunity to send one message to all the people you input. And I have to do it. When I did it myself, I had to do it one name at a time. Sometimes if you have it on another database, you can import it into MailChimp. I'm still trying to think of the database we're using now. It'll come to me. It's the one I've shifted from MailChimp to another one that my partners use. Anyway, regardless, I'm going to challenge every one of you, starting today, to start to add at least 1 or 2 or 5 names to your database every day. Every single day. Now, these names will go onto your database. So before you put them on your database, if you're meeting somebody at a party or you're exchanging business cards at a meeting or something like that, you just say, I'm going to put you on my database. From time to time, I'm going to send you some really good stuff. Some things that I think you really like. They'll be highly valuable, no cost to you whatsoever. You tell them that you're going to do that. And so they know that they might say to you, no, don't put me on that list. I don't want to be on that list. That's that they don't want to be spammed. But I'm going to find out in this audience right now, what is your database? How many names could you contact with one message? And okay, good. Now you already started to do that. Excellent. Good. Everybody needs to. If it's 0, it's 0. Don't worry about it. ConvertKit is the name. Thank you very much, Jeff. It's ConvertKit. That's what I use. Okay. Michael has 2,500. I want everybody. So we want every single person to vote in chat. Well, why do I want you to do that? Because I want you to see yourself. This is my database. This is because that database is valuable. It's very powerful. Very good, Angelica. Dave has 100. Let's see. We're piling in. Very good. 1,000 from Jazz, 300 from Deb, 100 from Dave, 0, 17. Thank you, Emmanuel. Tell the truth. 100, 2,500, 200. Okay, keep coming in. We can see. I don't, by the way, I don't gather these names for any purposes. I'm just want to show you that every audience is vastly different. We got people on this call who have 0 all the way to, well, 10,000 was the biggest number I saw. There's 2,500. There's 3,000. There's 4,000. There's 7,000. 2,500. Okay, good. 1,080 says Nikki. Yeah, you can go on your cell phone, scroll down to the bottom. It'll tell you how many names are on your phone right now. How many telephone numbers do you have? Okay. Rebecca, you have no idea. From this point forward, Rebecca, I want you to know, okay? Juan has 250, 100 from Vanessa. Okay, now, you heard me tell you, you want to be rich. You need a database. Simple. You need a database that you can market to. You need a product that you can sell. Hopefully information is the best, easiest thing to sell because you don't have to make it. I mean, you can create it, put it in a PDF format. You can sip it to people. I know one guy who was selling the craziest stuff you can imagine, was a 12-page PDF and makes millions of dollars selling this 12-page PDF. So it doesn't have to be huge. 1,643 says Rebecca, very good. Gail says 500. Okay, Nick, let's come back to Nikki. You've told me what your database is. Thank you very much. So Nikki knew she only had 45 days to do it, so she couldn't make a lot of money with 10 names. Well, she'd have to have 100,000 databases. That's, people with a database of 10 names. Some of you here on this call have actually the kind of names that I just explained to you. Some of you had 100, some of you had 10, some of you had 1, right? Some of you on this call right now had 1,000. Some of you had 10,000 on this call. You want to be rich? You need 10,000. That's the gold standard, because at 10,000 names, of that, usually about 10% of them are really good, really active. And the goldest of gold standard is to have 1,000 super fans who love you and love what you do. I'm grateful that there are some super fans that have been along the journey with me from the very beginning. So when I look at them on the phone, I know them by their first name. I know who they are. I know because they keep showing up. That's a super fan. Whatever you do, they show up because they like what you do. They like the way you say it. They like the way you communicate. Whatever, for whatever reason, why everybody would be connected as one of my super fans, sometimes I don't even know. But I do know that I do have super fans. And when I launch a new product, usually that super fan is there. They go, oh, great, let's do this one too, right? You're going to do the same thing. Now, let's see. If you had 10 databases of 100,000 names, are there 10 people? On this call, we know there are like 5 or 6 of you have a database of 10,000 or 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 7,000. We know right here there are on this call, we probably have at least 100,000 names represented. With all of you joining in, and most of you who wouldn't join in, maybe you're on a cell phone and you couldn't make the response. So we have a very large number of people that you know. Now, what if I were to come to you and say, let's do a joint venture? In for that? You want to do a joint venture? Tell you what, I'll market one of my products to your database. We'll split the profit. You get half, I get half. I'll sell my product, and in this case, it would be my ID to Income Masterclass, to your database. And if anybody buys, and I'll create all the mailing pieces, by the way, and we'll sell it to your database. If anybody buys, you get half the money, and I do all the work. All you have to do is push a button. Now I'm teaching you what you are going to do. So once you have a database, you have the rights, the opportunity to communicate with that database. Sometimes you communicate not your message, but you curate or discover another message out there who has an information product that you personally believe in, and you contact that database owner and you say to him or her, I've got a database of 10,000 names. Why don't we do a joint venture? I'll send my offer to your database and you get half the money and you don't have to do any work. You already have the database. If anybody buys, you get half the money. Oh, and by the way, I'll let you send your offer to my database. And if anybody buys, I get half the money and you do all the work, and maybe there isn't any work. Maybe you created the product. It's a bunch of audios or videos or a course online or whatever. Maybe there isn't any live contact with you at all. Maybe they just buy the product. You have to ship it. You deliver it. That's the work that's involved. In other words, when you have a database, you can market anybody's product to your database. Now, that's why you need an opt-in. That means people have to opt in. They have to go, you know, I really like that free thing you sent me. Yeah, I'd like to learn more also. Please put me on your database. And of course, when we sent an email, like to you, to get you here today, we had some opt-outs. We had people who said, you know, that Robert Allen, he just talks too much. Sorry, I'm opting out. And you unsubscribe, you're gone. I don't know where you went. All I do know is that there's some people who are still here, and hopefully you're receiving value. And this giving that I give you every week on this option. And then I gave a great report out last week on Facebook. Fabulous article I want all of you to read about the Millionaire Matrix. That was valuable information. There's zero cost to it. I'm just here to teach whoever shows up. And I love to do that. So it's okay with me. Bottom line is, you're going to model exactly what I'm doing. You'll send a message out to your database every week. What should I send them, Bob? Well, go find an article somewhere that you really like. Copy it. Send it to them. Say, oh, I thought you might like this article. Or maybe you wrote something. Maybe it's only a page long. Okay, you give it away. If you have a book, then you give a chapter of your book away from time to time to time. In other words, you're always giving. And when you do promotions like this, when you're doing any kind of communication to your database, it's usually 5 gives for 1 ask. That means I'm going to teach you free. I'm going to give you lots of stuff free. And every once in a while, I'll go, oh, by the way, you might be interested, and only less than 10% are ever interested. It's usually 5%, sometimes 1%. But that 1%, think of it for a minute, 1%. Okay, what if you have a database of 10,000 names and 1% respond? That's 100. Depends on what your price is, isn't it? If it was a $100 price point, 100 times 100 is $10,000. What? A small amount of money to a small amount of people means you earn serious money for one push of your button. So, you know, you want to see why databases are so important? Now, this database we have right here, Nikki, how did she get her database? She could find one database with 1 million names. She could find 10 databases with 100,000 names, or 100 databases with 10,000 names. And on this call, there were people with 10,000 names. I don't have 100 on this call, but there's a handful on this call who I could do a joint venture with. And some of you might say, would you do a joint venture with me? Well, you'd have to talk to our joint venture manager. You'll have to discuss whether or not that would work, whether it would fit, would be the right thing to do. I don't do it very often, frankly. I only do it maybe once every 2 months, where I'll ever actually open up my database where you hear from somebody else besides me. If they hear from somebody else, it's because I recommended them, okay? So Nikki, she's at a party in California. She's talking about her goal of giving money to this orphanage. And some students, I remember her telling this story, these students had been in a college class learning how to build a database, learning how to get double opt-ins, where they'll opt in to get something for free, and then you send an email to their email address, and they opt in from their email address. That's a double opt-in. That means they've given you 2 permissions to be able to communicate with them. And so you want to make sure you're communicating good value every time. You never want to give bad value. And then you give at least 5 times. And then every once in a while, you'll make an offer. So Nikki was explaining her project. And she says, I've got a product. It's a fantastic product. I'm going to sell it for $100. It's worth $1,000. It cost me $1,000. It costs ordinary people $1,000. I'm going to sell it for a 10% or a 90% discount. And it's powerful. For the avatar, they love it. They're going to love this. And I'm going to say, whoever buys this product at $100, I'm going to give 100% of the money away to this orphanage. And two young men were at the party, had just finished this database building class that they were in. And they said to Nikki, we have a database. Now, how do you think that happened? We have a database. Oh, she says, how big is your database? She says, well, we have between 500,000 and 600,000 names. 100,000, in other words, one database with 500 plus thousand names on it. And she said, would you allow me to send my offer to your database? If I give 100% of the money away, and of course they're young and they were very altruistic and, well, cool, that would be great. We give away all the money. Whoever responds, we don't know. So they worked up the email program, email list to send to the database what the promotion was going to look like. And they sent the email out, and 1,370 people responded. What percentage is that? Well, let's see. 1% would be on 500,000 names. 1% would be what would that be? 5,000? 1% would be 5,000. No, she didn't get 5,000. She got much less than 1%. She got about 0.2%. 1,370 people, 0.13 actually, 0.13%, 0.013. It might be 0.0013. I'm not, I can't give you the exact number, but the bottom line is they sent her $100 and she generated $1,370 in 45 days from zero idea, zero product, zero database, but connection with higher power. The orphanage received the money, and she still continues to this day to give money to that orphanage. Of course, they now formed a partnership with her and her students, and then they started marketing other products to that database and made millions since from that database. But they gave away the first $137,000. The reason I'm going to finish up with that story is I'm going to ask you, do you think higher power knew that was going to happen? How did that all come together in just the perfection of time? You know, what Jay Abraham said, what she learned at that 3-day event, the decision to give the money away. That's why I tell you that in enlightened giving, you know, the book 1 Minute Millionaire, the subtitle is The Enlightened Way to Wealth. What is the enlightened way? It's when you commit the first profits to some charity, cause, church, philanthropy, some place that needs the money more than you do. Kind of like Nikki selected to be the heroine for that one orphanage at that time. I'm going to ask you to select something. If you start a new side hustle by saying the first 10% of my money goes to X charity. I'm not asking you to actually, it doesn't matter to me what you choose, because every one of us is inspired in different ways. Some people like animal shelters. Personally, they could all die. I could care less. I'm not an animal person. But there's some people who live and breathe animals. In fact, me just saying what I just said really offended some of you right now. But that's because you were born to fund that idea. And I was born to fund the ideas that resonate with me. Higher power knows, with millions of people resonating with different kinds of giving vehicles, that eventually a lot of these giving vehicles are going to get funded by people who just know that they were born to give to that particular idea, whether it's a cause that you're interested in. A lot of stuff going on in the world today. You watch the news every night. There are a lot of people who are very passionate about their cause, and they're willing to do really crazy things to make it happen. Each person has a passion like that. If you don't, then say to higher power, where do you want me to give? Tell me where you want me to give. And I want you to start giving today. Find it today. Okay, I'll give you a week. I want you to give away to your favorite charity some money this week. Don't let a week go by. And basically say to higher power, thanks for being my partner. I know you're going to give me, you're going to help me, you're going to prosper and protect. Those two things happen when you have the right partners. And you get prospered in the strangest ways. And like I said, today was a big day for me. Ooh, big. And I want you to know that I didn't know yesterday higher power. I knew that today was a very good day. Where should you give? Why should you give? You know, who should you give to? That is, you might say, well, that has nothing to do with money. So why wouldn't you give? Second, who is the author of all wealth? Why wouldn't you say to higher power, you're the author of all wealth? You know where all the gold is. You know which stocks are going to go up tomorrow and which stocks are going to go down. You know my future. You can't tell me my future. I have to live it. So I own my life. You can't, show me the future, but you have to make sure that I experience the decisions that I make. But can you just drop a hint or two every once in a while? And you're going to find that when this life is over and you get to see your life and to see all of it and notice all of the unbelievably invisible things that were going on all around you that you were taking total credit for or total blame for, and realizing that some of those things were invisible. And they're invisible because you were being prospered and protected. And that's why I give. But each of you give the way you want to give. I'm just telling you the story about databases because that's a very profound and true story that I just told you about a large amount of money in a very short period of time. Taught you what I hope all of you can grasp here today. My love to you. I hope that you'll have a great day. Next Thursday is going to be July 2nd, so we'll still be on for next Thursday. If any of you ever wanted to do a JV, and of course you'd have to have a database of at least 10,000 names, but if you ever want to do a JV with me, how will you let me know? Well, just email me at success@robertallen.com. That's where you want to email me and say, I want to do a JV with you, Bob. Now, what I've tried to teach you today is what I do, how I do it. You can either hear what I said today and not do anything about it, or you can start gathering names today. Start building your database today. Next week, I'll ask you, how many people added names to your database? Did you found a way to gather them and to be able to market them? Some of you will be very happy to tell me how many more new names you added to your database. Today, I added myself. Over this last week, we've added hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of names to my personal database because we're doing a lot of Facebook marketing. So our database is just growing like crazy. Cost us money, but we're earning money too. So it's free database building. One day I'll teach you how to do that. In the meantime, don't have time to chat much longer. No time for questions and answers. You have my email address. You can send it to success@robertallen.com if you want to do a database, a joint venture with me.
Thank you, Bob.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you, Bob.
See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Bye.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Bob.